Okay, so happy middle of the Memorial Weekend. And I'm going to say it's happy because this is about honoring people who have died in past wars, current wars, veterans of foreign wars, and all that stuff. So, I mean, I'm not diminishing that was the basis of Memorial Weekend, but I think we also need to add on top of that because we know traditions can be very limiting. And we know that words can also compartmentalize the bigger picture. And so if we're going to acknowledge that these wars were man-made for so many different reasons, then we also must acknowledge those who are fighting wars within their bodies that have been compromised by so many things, and they are a veteran. Okay, when you are fighting a war of cancer, and it doesn't matter how you're fighting it, because it's not for anyone to decide how they're fighting it is bad, wrong, or whatever. It's the fact that they're fighting a war. And they're in battle as we speak, and they deserve acknowledgement. And those who have died from the battle of fighting cancer, disease, chronic illness, and autoimmune disorders, and or anything else, they also deserve acknowledgement because they were part of a bigger picture. So to say that those on the actual battlefield wearing fatigues, combat fatigues, are more important than those who are fighting biological wars because of human experimentation and just human competition, then you've been programmed to be compartmentalized and not see that you, even if you're not a veteran wearing combat fatigues in any wars, you are fighting a war. You are part of a war right now, a biological war, a competition of survival of the fittest, Darwinism, okay? And I know some people don't believe in Darwinism. They think Darwin was like a Freemason, bad. And no, Darwin was just stating the obvious that we are in competition for resources, competition for so many things, intelligence, king of the mountain. And so that's just life. Life is always competing with itself. And life could take itself out. Life could also prolong itself. And so it's just a matter of how you understand what life is and where you want those resources to be. You want to give away your resources to everyone, or you want to keep them for yourself so that way you can afford to give away some resources without somebody taking all of your resources, even with your own voluntary permission. So it's it's crazy out there. And I've been enjoying lately making those Facebook reels because with this energy, and I'm feeling it even now, the frequencies, okay? That's how I'm channeling my energy, is understanding imagery, frequency, understanding, chemistry, how all that works together, what the system has been doing with people and with their experiments. And I know people don't like seeing the experiments on babies, like you saw that reel, but that was how they figured out how to condition people and figure out what conditions people. Okay? I'm telling you, I mean, if you want to advance humans, so there's not so much exponential suffering, there's got to be that collateral damage. And who gets to be the one to be the guinea pig who doesn't survive the experiments? Well, that's what the science community has been wrestling with, is the morals and ethics of what they've been doing, and what does the ends justify the means and all of that. And I would say on some level it does, but how far do you take it? And that's left for the justice system and science to figure out between themselves. We humans, lay people, even professionals who aren't aware of what's going on really, have to then figure out if it's worth it to them to not survive the experiments that are going on. Okay. And so, God, these people are, stupid. Anyways, sorry. I'm just commenting on someone who's commenting on something else. So anyways, so yesterday was high frequencies. Today, right now, Memorial Weekend, high frequencies. Oh, I feel my heart's beating faster. And that is a conditioning process. I don't have to go and exercise. Okay. I've been reinforcing my vital organs with food, with releasing demons with adequate rest, even more so when I need to. Like yesterday, I had to take a nap. After I made my husband and I a hamburger with cheese, but no bread on it and no tomatoes or anything, but I had the mashed potatoes with a lot of butter and a lot of cream. I was like, okay, he was doing his boat stuff. And I'm like, okay, I had to take a nap, honey. So I just was like in like almost like a mummy position, just on my back. And I'm just like, okay, I got a nap. And so I napped, and it felt great, but it was like I needed to, because there were some major frequencies yesterday, major. And sometimes with those major frequencies, you have to nap and rest, but you have to feed. Okay, and I also know that people are in pain during those times because of predisposed issues, and those memories and traumas are coming to surface, and they're feeling the energy. And so that's when I'm doing those Facebook reels, just filtering and releasing that energy through imagery, through music, frequency. Of course, I'm eating at the same time. And then also figure out how people can help themselves get through the energy release so they don't get tortured to death from the body releasing. And that's essentially what the medical system has tried to do, but they have compounded the issues with trying to alleviate people's pain. They've made even more demons from that. And so I know that the way the system, CIA, MI6, MI5, have programmed people doing all those different experiences is they're giving people imagery and trying to figure out if you put all this death and war and gore and destruction and violent imagery in front of a child, and also other negative reinforcement, they'll turn that child psychopathic later on. And those experiments have been done. I mean, watch Clockwork Orange, okay? And so on the other side of it, when you're putting out beautiful imagery, okay, and some slower frequencies that are addictive because of the hormones it is influencing, and they're really popular, like in the 1960s, okay, and then you're trying to get through your situation because your body's releasing and you're in pain, looking at beautiful imagery of nature and waterfalls and little baby animals, and then also the music that catches somebody, plucks their chemical reactions, and you're not taking so much from them, and you're telling them, okay, feed yourself during that process as well. That's almost the same as taking a drug, but you're not taking drugs. You're now converting what those drugs have been doing to people, whether it's cannabis or something else, and converting it to image, converting it to a musical sound frequency. And then you feed yourself. And I'm saying, don't feed yourself the herbs and the extracts and the detoxes and the highly ionic concoctions, not even J juice, no fermentation. During that process of you feeding your mind images that are calming and musical frequencies that are calming, then you're bringing in the meat, the milk, the cream, the ice cream, the carbs. Okay? You want to be able to put all that together to then feed and nourish your body, literally. And so then when I put that reel with Andrew Tate, and Andrew Tate, there's nothing wrong with Andrew Tate. A lot of people have an issue with him because of his politics. He's high energy. He is what you would call a very excessively high frequency. Okay? And so I put that reel with that music that was used back in the 80s or 90s when people were doing exercise routines, okay, doing the aerobics. And so going into Andrew Tate's official profile and then taking all those pictures that show wealth and masculinity and sharp lines and aggressive juxtaposition of colors, black and red, and they're solid colors with clean lines of his jet plane and the clean lines of his fast car and his tattoos and his muscles, and then his pit bull, and then all of his friends that are all GQ'd out, looking like, metrosexuals. I mean, that's high energy. That's high frequency. That's currency. That's a lot of energy. And of course, he has a following. He has men and boys that want to be like him. And so matching that high frequency music to his lifestyle was showing you that's the other end of the calmness. If you happen to have a lot of substance to you, and the environment is going to try to condition you to, or condition your cells to release and do all that stuff. Well, then you have also Andrew Tate's video that I did for the Reels that has the high energy. And so someone is of a larger size, then go dance around and release some demons and release some energy that way. Okay. But on my end, I listen to those things occasionally. It's fun to hear some of it, because as you bring up the tempo, you're bringing up the frequencies, even in your cells, you're bringing up your heart rate, bringing up everything. And so it's a nice release. And then sometimes when the energy is so excessive out there that you can't help, you can't control, then bringing it down with the music and the imagery and the food and the sleep will then help you navigate the things that you can't see. And that's understanding biochemistry, frequency, imagery. I mean, this is definitely more than science. This is how they've been experimenting on people and developing certain types of people, okay, and trying to find the right combination. Because I'll tell you, there are some wrong combinations out there, and they are probably passed away, okay, like these excessive cult leaders that have victimized people with murders or just brainwashing them into destroying themselves or taking advantage of them sexually and all that. And so you have to understand that that's why America exists, to show you what people do behind closed doors, and what and where did it all originate? Where did the egg originate from, as far as all this human experimentation program? I couldn't tell you, but I know that the Rosicrucians, and they take on the characteristics and some of the methods of 6,000 years ago from the Egyptians. Okay, and where did they get it? I mean, we can go all the way back to, if you were to use the Bible as a reference, to all the Titans, okay, and the giants and all that. So it doesn't even matter really where it originated. It's just what's been going on. And since humans haven't been totally eradicated, we have carried on these predispositions of violence and all the 7 deadly sins for centuries, okay? And it just keeps getting reproduced in the population. And then you have different religions that practice this, and then they go and procreate like millions and millions of kids. And so they're bringing in all of that stuff into the population. And so then you have like chaos, a very unconditional environment with everyone just speaking different languages and throwing chakras at each other and acting out their hormonal predisposed issues. And some are pretty violent and aggressive and destructive. And so now the system's like, okay, I think we need to do something different here, because humans are going to all out not only destroy themselves, but destroy their environment and torture each other on the way out. And that can't happen. Okay. And so, so you think about the queen, or not the queen, but the princess and princess of, is it Sussex? Not Sussex. I don't know. Prince William and Queen, or Prince Catherine. You know, they are the epitome of beauty and intelligence, because they've been bred to be intelligent. They went to all the best schools over there in the United Kingdom. And then they are gorgeous, like literally gorgeous. So they are a representation of what the system wants. They want people who are gorgeous, nonviolent, and intelligent, and symmetrical, and yeah, relatively peaceful. Okay? And I'm not saying they have to be white or Caucasian, but that's kind of what the system wants. And I don't have no argument with that. But then you also have to keep yourself alive. So there's also suffering with that if you don't know how to balance out all your hormones and release the demons, how they're getting absolution, how Prince William and Princess Catherine get their absolution is through having children who are relatively balanced. And so their children are what's going to carry on that genetic line. So there's that side of the world that they're going to promote, because people are going to, you can't tell people not to have kids. You can't tell people not to procreate and have sex with each other. And so if you're going to have a family, maybe that's the type of family you want. And it doesn't even matter if you're binary, non-binary, or whatever, but that's kind of the representation. And then, of course, there's all the subcultures out there, and then there's the J world. And we're another subculture out there that's competing for some kind of recognition. and allowance and understanding. Okay. And so that's your position, J world people, is that we are another subculture that wants to have some credibility and give people the opportunity not to die from their suffering. That if they're going to suffer and get back to center and baseline, then make it work for them and have them, and then you get to live and overcome all those bullshit issues that you had to deal with and reinvent yourself and take on more knowledge. Because I'll tell you, taking on the knowledge of understanding how the world works is just so fun. It's so amazing making the connections without having to blame someone or destroy someone else. You're just developing yourself and seeing how far you can, or see how far you can stretch your potential, your capacity. And that is like the best gift of all, when you can increase your own intelligence, when you can do almost anything you want. So as long as the environment can allow it, okay, and your community can allow it. And so this environment is conditioning those who are strong enough to deal with it, who are also intellectually smart. Okay, so the change in frequency and fluctuations is making sure that your heart can handle the stress. And if you are morally opposed to strengthening your body with food and resources and releasing demons, you will either exercise, work, play, reproduce yourself to death, or starve yourself to death. Who will be left? Those who are strong enough in body, regardless of intellectual capacity. But if you're strong enough for this environment and you're able to prolong your life and keep feeding the energy, you're going to be intelligent anyways. Okay, so we have so much diversity out there that we do have people who are really strong in body. We don't really know exactly how far their intelligence of logic and learning stuff goes. But if their body is strong enough, okay, and then they're in a specific job and they're taking care of business and they're good at their job, they will be extremely intelligent in their job. And so then they will carry that industry forward. And if they keep taking in food and releasing demons, then their intellectual capacity can go very far relative to their specific intentions and their occupation and the area they're in, and so many other things. So who'll be left? Those who are strong enough in body, regardless of intellectual capacity. But by the very nature of surviving this, you will have an increased level of intellectual capacity, because you can't help but not. To survive this, you got to know there's more than what you've been doing the last 100, 200 years, okay? And so then there's this whole thing with frequency, imagery, and chemistry. The system programmed people through specific images they wanted reproduced back into the population. Because that's what I said about when you see those experiments of people having their eyelids like Clockwork Orange, like forced open, and they're forced to look at images of war and violence and gore, and then they turn into something like that. Okay, so you got to understand that when you are posting stuff out there, like I'm looking at all the different photographers, and I'm just searching through all the different people's Facebook pages and occupation pages. I'm looking for photography. Some are obvious of what they gravitate towards, the sexual violence and blood and gore and destruction. And so that is predominant. And of course, who they attract, those are in that same type of situation. And I'm not saying that's bad or wrong. That's just a subculture. But that's what the system, the surveillance system, is observing, is what is predominantly running you. And that comes out in what you say, what your politics, religion, science dogmas, but also what your occupation is, and then what is your artistic outlet. Okay. And that's great. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. And if it makes money and you're happy with it, okay. And so that's fine. And if you have an outlet to do that, and do it. And so there's people out there who are really upset, who are very angry, who are intolerant, who are bullies, and it comes out in their activism. It comes out in their protesting stuff. It comes out in, well, you've seen it, the extremism. And so the system is also observing that. Because now when we're gearing from a physical, like, old world into a digital world. It's dangerous out there to be out there spouting whatever it is. It's dangerous anyways, just because of accidents and people coming off unhinged and all of that. So when people want to express themselves politically, then they will do it on the internet, and then the system can track that, and they can track even the dark web, and they think, oh, if I do the dark web, no one's going to know. Oh, the dark web is probably run by all the government. That's why the government does so much crazy shit that people are like, why they do that? Because they have to figure out who's attracted to that type of thing. It's like when, I'm thinking of an analogy, and I don't know if there's an analogy. In order to overcome food allergies, you have to introduce the food allergies to the foods to your body so you can condition and assimilate. I'm not saying the government wants to assimilate to all the crazy shit out there, but they have to kind of be it to attract it, to see who it is in the population. And so if there are aggressive pedos out there, then the system is going to develop a scenario to attract them and then catch them in the act. And also have to figure out what behaviors come from someone abused. And so then when they're tracking outcomes of specific situations that have been done to people, that have been documented and collected, then they can recognize those traits in the population. And it comes out in art, it comes out in poetry, it comes out in books, it comes out in Facebook posts, it comes out in your politics, religion, science. So don't get mad at all the experiments, okay, people? Understand there's a need for them. It sucks that some people are and they don't realize it, and then they don't survive. And some will have a hard time coming back from all those different types of experiments, and that sucks. Everyone is going to be given a type of path in life, and if they can overcome the path that was given to them at a young age, then they will have so much innovation and an amazing story to tell, and then who knows what else they will develop after they've let go all those demons. They could become extraordinary, just like a diamond in the rough, right? So the more of a crazy ass past you have, the bigger the opportunity and capacity. Well, the better the potential of something amazing that can come of that. And so right now, we have a lot of people who are like bemoaning their situation. They're like, oh God, my parents, my mom, my dad, my guardians, I was told I was this and now it's not. And they're all just like all over Facebook, just bemoaning their situation. When in reality, if they would have released those demons and uncover the gifts that were given to them, that yeah, they may have that certain past in the background, but it doesn't run them. And then there is so many things that they could do with that energy, with that storyline. And who knows what could come of that. That would be amazing for humanity and for themselves. And they can get compensated for it. And they wouldn't have to die. While they wouldn't have to suffer and die. I mean, it's okay to suffer and live and then release the demons and then develop something amazing. But to suffer and die, why? But again, people have to know that they can live from the suffering and potentially even release that suffering, the exponential suffering. And that's hard to get across people, that you can actually live from the suffering and not die from suffering. And so anyways, frequency, imagery, and chemistry. The system programmed people through specific images they wanted reproduced back into the population. So what is frequency? So let's look at the definitions. The rate at which something occurs or is repeated over a particular period or time in a given sample. An increase in the frequency of accident due to increased over time. Okay, so just look at the frequency of what you're writing on your Facebook. Look at what you're writing, what you're saying, what you're doing, and look at how often you write about that. And then you will see what is running you. But that's if you're even willing to even look at what you're writing and what you're doing on a daily basis. And so the rate at which occurs or is repeated over a particular period of time or in a given sample. So that's frequency. So just like those frequencies that you see on those, is it amplifiers? Where you can measure the sound or the static, and so, or the waves. And so you can see the high rate of frequency when the waves are like this, and the slow rate of frequency when it's like this, just like measuring a heartbeat. Okay. And so that's kind of what you're doing, is you're measuring the frequency of which you are releasing whatever demons, whatever hormone is in control at the time. And so then you look at your behaviors, you look at what you are involved with, you look at what predisposed issues you have, and you see there's a lot of frequency in certain parts of the areas. Well, you know there's something has to release, so you can kind of slow down the frequency, the rate of pain, but it doesn't mean you take on something else to stop it. You have to be able to release it and then get back to some sort of baseline of some sort. And so frequency is an important thing to understand. And so imagery, visually descriptive or figurative language, especially in a literary work. Tennyson uses imagery to create lyrical emotion. Visual images collectively, the impact of computer-generated imagery on the contemporary art, visual symbolism, the film's religious imagery. Okay, so imagery does trigger specific hormones that have been traumatized. And so that's then how people can program themselves to be violent, to be gory, to be intolerant, to be, I don't know, so many different things. Or you can program yourself through imagery and releasing the demons to be relatively peaceful, to be tolerant, to be evolutionary, and all of that. Okay, so imagery has a lot to do with programming people or acting out your programming. Okay, so understand that the power of what it is that you are visualizing in yourself and what you're looking at is really it's important. It's an important thing to understand that how frequency and imagery work together, along with chemistry, the branch of science that deals with the identification of the substances of which matter is composed, the investigation of their properties and the ways in which they interact, combine, and change, and the use of these processes to form new substances. Okay, that's evolution, chemical reactions from imagery and frequency, right? The complex emotional or psychological interaction between two people. Their affair was triggered by intense sexual chemistry. And then, what is a surveillance society? Observing the type of frequency of the imagery influencing the chemistry. And so again, what you feed your mind, and it could be in politics, religion, science, dogmas, is going to be acted out upon your behaviors, what occupations you go to, and what you're attracted to, and then your politics, your religion, your science, all that. So yeah, what you feed your mind says everything. And if you feed your mind only a very homogenized type of information, then you're going to come out homogenized and one-sided, biased, and all that. So that's why it's important to feed your mind so many diverse things. Understand concepts you never even thought you could understand. Read definitions. Go find different artists and photographers. Understand history. Look at all the new belief systems that are out there. Understand all the different religions and their symbolism. Like, take an interest in the world that you live in if you want to have opportunity to become unbiased. And when you're unbiased, that's the immortality. That's the longevity. See, the biases develop lifespans because you can't live in biases forever. You really can't. You have to be able to evolve. But if evolving is so painful, too painful, then I understand why you have to be biased and intolerant and homogenized and disbelieving and all this other stuff, okay? So 5 senses, the faculties of sight, smell, hearing, taste, and touch. So when I say when someone is either missing or different aspects of their 5 senses may not be strong, they will have strengths in specific areas. Does having a strength in one area till you have a weakness in another area, and you have a weakness in another, it just depends on, does having strength in one area, I can't believe it, I don't know what to say. Does having strength in one area, develop a weakness in another area. It just depends on how you would measure the possible potential versus the actual potential. So what am I saying? Does having strength in one area develop a weakness in another area? Well, yeah, obviously. When something is very specifically strong in one area, then you know there's a weakness somewhere, and that will then develop suffering later on. And so someone said before to me, well, you shouldn't worry about your weaknesses, only worry about your strengths. Develop your strengths. Make your strengths so amazing. I understand on that side of it because the system wants innovation. They've compartmentalized the giants into now these pixelated humans who are very hormonal, who will represent certain hormones and certain cells and certain ideas and thought processes, and they will be so condensed in one person. And then, of course, the system is going to exploit that and utilize that strength for the bigger picture to see how they can observe what this condensed energy with all these different factors, what will it elicit? Will it elicit computer coding, Python, Facebook, anything out there that we're discovering. Okay, so when you have a strength in something and then you have weaknesses, you know that eventually at some point there'll be a suffering because those weaknesses will destroy you. And so will that strength. That's why balance and evolution and adaptation is so important. So that way you're not jaded by the strengths or the weaknesses that you hold, because even your weakness could be your biggest strength of suffering, which is a lot of people out there who are suffering is that they are focused mostly on their weaknesses, don't know their strengths. But even then, if they recognize their strength, that could become their weakness because they keep jockeying back and forth between the two. And so there's no balance or alignment. And then it's just then things go chaotic, right? And so, is being conventionally beautiful make you more peaceful? Probably, but not really. I don't know. When you are beautiful, what are you making up for? A lack of extreme intelligence. For instance, Stephen Hawking. Okay, then the whole thing of a beautiful mind and ugly possibility. He wasn't particularly, pleasing to the eye, but he had real excessive intelligence. And so, 41 years with Lou Gehrig's disease has left the famous physicist Stephen Hawking's body utterly vulnerable. After 2 police investigations, his family and friends revealed why they fear for his life. Okay, I don't know where that came from. Okay, well, we read that article. I didn't read the whole article. Okay, so the suffering is when you capitalize on your strengths and ignore your weaknesses, because those strengths can only produce so long before they even break down. And the other side of it, your weaknesses, people focus on so much, becomes your strength and it destroys them. And so weaknesses are indicators that that there is deficiency and it won't last forever as far as you and your longevity. And so when you figure out your strengths and weaknesses, you realize you have a lot of work to do to build up. Jesus Christ. Oh, I'm released right now. That's why I'm talking very rapidly. The environment's pretty aggressive. So when you figure out your strength and weaknesses, you realize you have a lot of work to do to build up your weaknesses to become not so much of a strength, but balance working in conjunction with what is already conditioned. Then you won't even need to use the word strength. You're just understanding how shit works, and you're utilizing your capabilities based upon the needs at the time, and the needs can change all the time. Okay? And so what is conditional? Right? Because I said, when you figure out your strengths and weaknesses, you realize you have a lot of work to do to build up your weaknesses to become not so much a strength, but balance working in conjunction with what is already conditioned. Okay, so you can condition your heart to handle the frequencies. And like my lymph nodes, that I could feel them open up. Okay, and they're a little bit painful, not totally, but you can see little rashes under them, like you can see an actual little thin line, and that means that they're open, they're releasing, and that's a good thing. Okay, and so my body is conditioned to deal with the fluctuations. And like when I sneeze, that means my body's releasing some excessive energy that needed to be released from that violent release. Okay. And so I'm conditioned. And so what is conditional? It is subject to one or more conditions or requirements being met, made or granted on certain terms. The consortium has made a conditional offer. So subject to, depending on, contingent on, hinging on, resting on, hanging on, based on, determined by, controlled by, tied to, bound up with, contingent, dependent, qualified, with conditions, with reservations, limited, restrictive, provisional, stipulatory, provisory. Opposite is unconditional and absolute. Remember, the FTC said there's no absolutes. That was one of my lessons from the Federal Trade Commission, is that even though when I was making claims back then, because I knew that eventually you could become cured, but there was no guarantee that you wouldn't experience energy before you became cured. So you couldn't really claim something that could be cured right off the bat when people may have predisposed issues that could be ionized, energized by that ionic substance of the J juice. And so there's no absolutes, okay? Maybe eventually you become cured, but then cured means that you eventually start breaking apart, and that's only temporary. Again, it's not guaranteed. And so having a temporary being cured and then developing entropy or senescence from that cure, then again, there's no guarantee. So there's no absolutes when it comes to taking away someone's disease, because you'll just develop another demon on top of that, or freeze the demons in place, and then eventually another demon will come in and break the spell, and now you're back to where you were before. So that's why you don't want to be cured. You want to be evolutionary, okay? Adaptive. I got blow my nose. Jesus Christ. And so unconditional is unquestioning, unqualified, not subject to any conditions. And so, yeah, someone says, oh, conditional love or unconditional love, that's chaotic love. I wouldn't want unconditional love. I don't want unconditional love. I don't want to be loved like where someone just doesn't care what I do. Because let me tell you, if my husband said, I love you unconditionally, and I would take advantage of that, and he would just love me no matter what I did, I could hurt him, I could do this and that, and he would still love me. You don't want that. You want someone to have some kind of boundaries for themselves and for the world they live in. Unconditional love is not the optimal. When parents have unconditional love for their kids, then their kids are going to run amok and go destroy shit. And they know they'll be validated by that parent who gives them the unconditional love. That's why these kids are not surviving this environment, because the parents never gave conditions. But love is like forever. This is like the parent-child. I'll tell you, that's why these kids don't survive their childhood or their adulthood, because of the parents' unconditional love. Sometimes some people need to walk away from people's behaviors and what they do in their choice in life to show that that isn't acceptable. That is not only morally inappropriate, but how are you going to fucking survive living that way? Walking away isn't a bad thing. Putting conditions on love and relationships and all of that, abso-fucking-lutely, that is respect when you put conditions on love. Because really what love is, it's chaos. It's dying and reproducing. And when you have unconditional dying and reproducing, you have chaos, and then you have all-out extinction. And that's what's built into the family unit. When you have everyone going like, oh, I love my kid unconditionally. Yeah, that poor fucking kid. You love it so unconditionally, it won't know how to fucking survive, because there's no boundaries. Because when you go into an office, or you go into a group of people, or you go out there in the public, you can't just do shit and think that someone's going to be okay. That's okay. If you weren't trained that there are conditions in our society that you have to abide by, and then you have to pay for, there is repercussions for your actions, people won't survive. They'll go out there think they can do whatever, and then they'll learn very quickly that society does not handle unconditional people very well. Okay? I even learned how to deal with the public with my mouth with other girls when I was in 8th grade, get my ass whooped because I was talking, I was talking whatever I was talking, and they're like, yeah, we're going to put a condition on you. You can't say shit. I wasn't like saying anything bad, but I was just talking like I could just say whatever. Or talking back to someone who's like, well, you can't talk back to me because I'm the queen bee, right? Well, I learned very quickly that you got to be careful who you deal with out there in the public square and in diverse groups. And if you haven't been taught that there are conditions out there, then you will learn very quickly, or not at all, because you won't survive. And so, yeah, this whole unconditional love by the parents, that's what is destroyed humans, is the unconditional love. And so then I was just kind of going through, like, I don't know, what is it? I was just free thinking about beauty and stuff. If everyone was beautiful, there would be no competition, no war, because beautiful women and men would be a dime a dozen. There'd be no misery or mystery except for the deterioration process. That's where the misery comes from. Is the justification of deteriorating, having to justify why you look the way you look and why you act the way you act, and then also experiencing the deterioration process. That's what these poor women and men out there. Men can age gracefully in our society, and they even look better as they become older. They age like fine wine. Women, it's totally different. Okay? And so the suffering from women, and that's why they do harm themselves with plastic surgery and Botox, is that fact that they're trying to keep up with 20-year-olds. And so they're doing the Botox, the plastic surgery, or they're like, I'm going to age naturally or deteriorate naturally, gracefully. And they look like the witches in the Disney movies. Okay? And that's a suffering in of itself. And they're trying so hard to accept it and justify it and make it okay. And when you have to justify deteriorating and making it okay and turn it into a political activist stance, then you know it's not okay. They're just trying to find a way to develop a subculture around it to make it okay. Okay, so once someone was beautiful, conventionally beautiful, and then they become decrepit, that's misery. That's why people commit suicide, because they can't keep up. And I said people would be having sex with each other. People would be having sex with each other all the time, releasing not only their demons but destroying themselves. So that's on their way to being decrepit. But in the process, they would be producing so many children. But if they were always having sex, not producing children, then they will be using up many resources, inevitably causing senescence. Okay? And so is there a happy medium between being conventionally beautiful, balanced, symmetrical, and extremely intelligent? That's why my Jade world needs to discover. That's what my Jade world needs to discover. Not everyone was programmed to be beautiful in their prior world. I mean, conventionally beautiful. And so even I need to check my bias as far as balance and beauty and all of that. What determines beauty? But I don't want anyone to think that they've made it, even myself. Because we have a long way to go to discover how the environment will affect our evolution and increasement of our intelligence. Okay? And so since I was brought up to be sexual and beautiful and all that, that was the gift that was given to me a long time ago. And now I'm going through the increasement of my intelligence, which means increase in weight, yes, increased feelings of things that will cause fluctuations and lack of symmetry at a certain time, and then things fall into place at another time. And so that balance of intelligence, symmetry, relative sexuality, because I'm married, and balance and adaptation and release and all these things. And so will humans in the J world find that symmetry and conventional beauty along with intelligence and with the demons of releasing and all of that? And they're not too big or too small. That's what we're discovering, because we've all been programmed differently out there. And we know that so much beauty came from, at one point in the genetic line, somebody was heavily sexualized, okay? And so then you can see that in the population where you can have kids that were heavily programmed to be a certain way and sexualized, and then they have children, and those children are fucking gorgeous. And so maybe the mother isn't exactly gorgeous, but she was, abused, maybe sexually abused as a kid, but their offspring, after all of that came out in the wash, and they finally, got married and became a respectable human after all maybe drugs and who knows what else, and all that chaos, then they go and get married, and now their daughter or son is gorgeous. So from all that programming, that chaotic programming that happened prior in that parent's early childhood and even in adulthood, and then they finally calm down and they had a kid, now the offspring are like gorgeous, but they have their own suffering and they have their own weaknesses. I've seen that in the population. Okay. So now what, so it's still, with all that programming out there, what will be that barometer? And that is just, it's time. Because even a specific look isn't always going to tell you if someone's balanced or not. Because we have some people programmed to be intelligent, like extremely intelligent. The written word is like poetry to them, and they're writing like poetry, but they could be not very beautiful. Okay, at least conventionally, anyways. And so we, so I even have to check to figure out to not look as looks as a barometer. But what is the barometer? It's the balance of what you say, what you speak, the intelligence, what you're producing, what, even there's so many things, so many factors, and write them all down. Write them all down, and figure out everything. That's the program. That's where you can program yourselves, humans. So you're not basing what you think is normal and preferred based upon somebody else's. But you know that you need to have so many different logics to understand the world out there. And you need to have adaptation. You need to have body. You need to have your mind be able to process information and understand all sides of an issue. Your spirit is all the different hormones that are in play relative to what is going on and how extreme or how lack of conditioning some of them are, and what do you need to do to get everything up to speed. And then you'll have to figure out how that's going to be. And so that's what I'm offering to everyone, is to pay attention to all of that. Okay. And always check your biases, like literally always check your biases. Oh shit. And that's a lot, but it's interesting. That's what's going to get you up in the morning, when you're not like, well, I'm really disenchanted with my job. I'm disenchanted with my lifestyle. And now I want to work on myself, and I want to work on the potential and the possibility. These things are getting old that I used to do. So now what will get you up in the morning? Well, holy shit. The potential of what you could become based upon your understanding of every different facet of who you are. And then our society giving you the gifts and offering you the accessibility to the gifts out there that you can take on. And there's a lot out there, so bide your time. You don't have to do everything all at once, but it's baby steps. Okay? Baby steps. And so even I need to check my biases as far as balance, but I don't want anyone to think that they've made it, even myself. let me tell you, I wanted to do so much stuff, and I still have to deal with these frequencies. I can feel it right now. I mean, the frequencies are pretty insane. My heart is beating faster because we have a long way to go to discover how this environment will affect our evolution and increasement of our intelligence. And so then we're going to transition to the next thing, which is when the frequencies are up I turn my reels to slow down. I turn to my reels to slow down my energy, and I'm eating food to make the most of the energy. And so when I see that there was a bruise yesterday, like on my hand, and that I remember hitting my hand on the corner of my coffee station, and it left a bruise there. Okay. And that was maybe a few months ago, but then it started coming back again. Like the bruise came back again as if it was tender. And I looked up like bruising coming back. I'm like, oh yeah, it could be lack of vitamin K. It could be all these different things, underlying conditions, disease. I'm like, Jesus. But yesterday, the frequencies were up. I was eating carrots. So I have a bunch of carrots, and that has a lot of vitamin K. Okay. And the bruise is gone, but it was there yesterday, but the bruise is gone. And that's interesting because why wouldn't it, excuse me, why wouldn't it like heal altogether, or say heal, but why would it come back? Well, there's a lot of sensitive muscles in the hands. I couldn't tell you exactly. Maybe it wasn't fully regenerated and fully reversed and all that. And so your body will tell you, the foods that you need to bring in all the time. And I do eat relatively diverse, I mean, last night, what did we have? We had pork chops, and we had, my husband, he had the Brussels sprouts, and they're like $1 over there at Giant Eagle, which is like a little like pack of, it's frozen with cheese or something butter on it. And I have broccoli with cheese along with the pork chop, and I have milk and ice cream and cream and coffee and carbs. But I don't go overboard on the vegetables, and I don't go overboard on, I mean, really, it's diverse, and there's so much out there that you can bring in, but you really need the cream. And so that was what I utilized my energy on yesterday. Was I not only was I developing reels to calm down my body, my spirit, but I was bringing in the food. I was eating the raw carrots. I had a whole huge bag, 5-pound bag of carrots. So I was eating it raw. And I'm actually amazed that the bruise is gone. I'm pretty fucking amazed that it's gone. Okay, but it was yesterday, it was tender. And even my scar yesterday, this, I can't even see this. Okay, that was like, you know, it's like, it looks like almost like a keloid. That was also tender and prominent yesterday. All right, so when the frequencies are up, I turn to my reels to slow down my energy, and I'm eating food to make the most of the energy. That's why I say, when you feel your heart race and you're feeling stuff going on, you need to eat the food and also find ways to release those demons without taking aggressive substances. Like, do not be turning to J juice during this time, because J juice is highly ionic. You don't need the fermented foods. What you need really is the cream and the milk and the cheese and the eggs and some of the fruits, the vegetables, of course, yeah, along with all that, but the carbs and the cream. I can't say that enough. Have some ice cream. Okay? So everything is in harmony. If you are dealing with pain, here's how you can use your environment to your benefit without destroying yourself. You can't control the frequencies that come up, okay? And that is predominantly the issue during this climate change. These are frequencies that are coming up at different times. They came up on Friday in the early afternoon, and they came up yesterday, Saturday, in the late afternoon. So they're keeping you unstable when you think about it. And so now you must learn how to react to them so they don't destroy you, and then you don't inadvertently destroy yourself in the process by taking all the herbs and extracts and detoxes and cannabis and everything else under the sun that someone is offering people to stop the pain. When the frequencies are up, I have this energy, ice cream, energy, ice cream, energy, ice cream, okay? That's why I always have that little dessert as my little emoji. So yes, you can control your hormones based upon reacting to things out of your control using music frequency, food, leaving highly energetic situations like concerts, and maybe lessen your weekend routines of the bars and all that, the alcohol, the drugs, and the constant distraction needing the adrenaline rushes. Okay, so yes, you can control your hormones based upon reactions to things out of your control using music frequency, food, leaving highly energetic situations or lessening them, napping, or finding something low-key to watch on Netflix or YouTube. So if you're using food, make sure it's something that, like vegetables, meat, cream, sugars, fruits, nuts, fats, and carbs. Not alcohol, not spices or herbs or cannabis or extracts or tinctures or anything remedy-like, because that will take away, those frequencies are so aggressive, they will actually take away substance and cause the accelerated aging process. And so that's why in this environment, it is judge, jury, and executioner, because your lifestyle is going to determine how you are going to fare aggressively, where you can see now correlation equals causation. See, before you had enough time in between frequencies, so if you were an alcoholic, you could have a bunch of food and release demons and potentially even turn that around, because the frequencies were like slow waves, right? But with these frequencies, they're like this, you won't have time in between all of your different reactions to your lifestyle. And so people can die from fast-moving cancers because of their alcohol lifestyle, their drug lifestyle, all their other things, predisposed issues. And so you don't have enough time now to go and redirect. Some people don't. And so you have to recognize your lifestyle as being antibiotic pretty quickly if you want to survive in this environment. And so then I said, go to Facebook and find the samples of loops that are low key, and while you're eating, listening to the low key music. You must have a smartphone and understand how to use Facebook Reels. Okay? And so I made several reels. Beautiful pictures. Be kind to yourself and release the demons when necessary without using aggressive elements. You don't need highly ionic elements to release demons. Milk is not highly ionic. Cream is not highly ionic. But when your body needs to produce the proteins to release the demons and give you substance, you will be ionic because you will feel the pain of release. And that's what I'm saying. Don't do the kefir, which took away the fat. Okay, the kefir kefir. Eat your carbs and drink your cream and milk. Your body will produce those proteins to help you survive and adapt. And then you're going to have to rest. And so you will be ionic until your body gets to relative equilibrium. And so you're always constantly adjusting. Make sure you understand how to do that so you survive this. And so I said about the frequency shifts and all that, when I said that. And so the system is forcing instability so those who are completely weak to the instability are phased out. That's the intention. Those who don't understand how to support frequency shifts and all that, and they have a very aggressive, highfalutin, and adrenaline-like lifestyle, and they're also on their herbs and extracts and detoxes, and have issues in politics, religion, and science, they won't survive this. They won't survive this. It'll just be a matter of time. They're too biased. And so I say to those in the J world, when you become unbiased, keep feeding the energy and release the demons. And I'm telling you, my nose is itchy right now. I know you keep thinking like, no, I'm not sniffing anything. My body's releasing. Okay? And so too much salt and water foods will cure you and cause eventual starvation, also known as entropy. So this is for those who are still doing the J juice, making it and drinking it now. And they shouldn't really, when you think about it, because this environment is like the J juice. It is ionic. So too much salt and water foods will cure you and cause eventual starvation, also known as entropy. Over time, relative to BMI, severely underweight, entropy. So not enough salt and water with foods and proper release by a conditioned alimentary canal will cause morbid obesity, and the diverse life will be at war with each other and you, and the aggressive life will shut down the host you. And that's called negentropy. So when you bring a bunch of people together, diverse people together, they will fight to the death. All right, that's what goes on with people who are morbidly obese. They have so much diversity. They're bringing in the Crips, the Bloods, the Norteños, Sereños, and all the motorcycle gangs, and all the Democrats, Republicans, and then all the different religions, Christians and Catholics and Jews and all that stuff. And they're all at war with each other, and they're all fighting. And that's bringing together. But eventually, too much togetherness is going to cause negentropy, which is togetherness, bringing together. But then they will break apart and be like a supernova. It'll be all out destruction. That's what goes on too with people who are morbidly obese. All right. So electrolytes regulate the life in the body and the spirit. Cow milk cream is life, and you need complete proteins, and you need the grains, the fats. You don't need to ferment the grains. Okay. So you need the fats, all fats, and allow the body to express itself without being in fear of another remedy, surgery, or oncology traumatizing it. And so the J juice was to show you life sprang from salt water and regulates life, which is why tropical rainforests are full of fresh water. Yes, but so much diverse life that may also be poisonous to humans. So when you go to the Amazon rainforest, and that's why Amazon's called it Amazon, because Amazon is so diverse with so many people's wants and needs. When you go into the Amazon rainforest, there will be caterpillars, there will be so many different insects and bacteria and microbes that you're going to have to deal with and release demons and assimilate to. And that's a lot. That's so diverse. That's too evolutionary when you think about it. You won't get a rest. That's why the whole naked and afraid going out there in the forest, in the jungle, naked, with things crawling all over you and crawling in you. Oh, hell no, I wouldn't do it. All right. And so yeah, the beaches of the oceans have life, but not the same type of life found in the Amazon rainforest, though you will see brackish water because the salt water and the fresh water are meeting together, so there's less salinity, and certain parts of the ocean people go to, they'll have a lot more bacteria. That's where the flesh-eating bacteria and other things happen with people who have open wounds, because there is that brackish water. But even in salt water, for people, that have a low tolerance to diverse life, because there's still diverse life in the ocean, just not as diverse as a freshwater place like the Amazon, they still get infection because they have a low tolerance. They have a low tolerance for evolution, and they don't have a really good immune system. And so then they get eaten up by the microbes. And that's why you're seeing people die on contact sometimes from fungal infections because they don't have an immune system to release it. I mean, they have an immune system, but it's so atrophied because of all their uses in the medical holistic, they don't have the immune system to fight it. Not only do they weigh so less than most people, or they're so morbidly obese, that it's just another diverse thing that's going to cause all out destruction. That's why balance is so important. So that way you can go into the ocean and go into the Amazon and come out relatively unscathed, but that's not the case for a lot of people. So then they have to go get the V's when they go into different countries, so they don't die from exposure to something they weren't used to. So I understand the ocean saltwater regulates life. And I've made that analogy before about the salt in the ocean. But again, you have so much salt, you become cured, and that causes entropy and destruction. So you got to be able to fluctuate with the environment. And so this info is why all soldiers died. They died for you to advance humans. This is for all of Memorial Day weekend. I was definitely, going off the hook with this. Make their death worth it and advance yourself and live if you can, or else thank you for your service to humanity. Again, all of you who are in a battle right now, you are a veteran. Even if you never put on combat fatigues and served in any of the armies out there, you are a veteran of all the wars that are going on right now, the biological wars. We appreciate your contribution. Understand Memorial Day and weekend. What is death if it does not mean something like human advancement? Memorial Weekend is not just remembering those from all the wars. Those wars were for a reason, to understand all humans affect a lifestyle, belief system, and human experimentation. Those wars encourage economies, energy, capitalism, holidays, freedom, with the quotes, and innovation. Make Memorial Day mean something besides a meme. What will you do to make their death, the people who died, mean something to your life? And that means even your parents. How will you make your life mean something for their death? Because their parents sacrificed their life for you if they're dead or they're dying. Okay? Let me tell you, all the veterans of foreign wars didn't die for you to have a 10,000 square foot house. They didn't die for you to go and travel everywhere. They didn't die for you to become a drug addict or an alcoholic with different diseases. They didn't die for you to worship them like you are worshiping people of the past who are dead. Right? You're saying Jesus died for your sins, and then this poor guy who was forced to go get drafted or whatever died for your freedom? Okay. You've always been free, but what did he die for? For human advancement. They didn't die for you to die in other wars. They died so you can live and carry on the human spirit. All right? They died fighting another man's war to advance humans and socio-geopolitical politics. They died fighting biological wars. That includes those who didn't fight in foreign wars or even domestic wars, because when you think about it, civilians are dying in domestic wars. Okay? The fact people lost their lives to cancer, disease, and chronic illness and accidents says that they did die in a war. They did not survive the war in their body or in their environment or in their community. If anyone has died in your life, regardless of where they died and who they died for, who they fought for, they died in a war. When will you make that death mean something so that others may live and so that you may live? Everyone who is in a battle right now is a veteran. If you die, that's what this holiday is all about. And so that's the J world, is that people have died for you to figure this out. And will you make their death mean something so you keep living on? And you give this access to your kids without you circulating so much in your trauma, and that you stay living on and release that trauma and make that trauma mean something. Because some of you have been highly traumatized and it's not going to mean shit because you won't survive the trauma. And neither will your kids, because they don't have anyone to look up to. They're not going to look up to me as a stranger. They're looking up to their parents. And if the parents have not figured out their trauma and they die from their trauma, then there goes the whole genetic line. And faster in this environment. Okay? So Memorial Weekend is to literally make people's death from the past mean something and you stay alive indefinitely. But again, there is that yin and yang. For every life, there has to be a death, because we have to make room for those that want to live. And those that, well, say they want to live, but not really, because they are excessive in everything. Intolerant, destructive, non-evolutionary, miserable. Is that life? I guess it is. But is that life destroying not only itself, but everyone around them and taking more than they're contributing? And that's the whole balance of everything. When I was watching The Fifth Wave, when that soldier was saying, yeah, everything is a lie or something is a lie, and we're just making room for those. We're making room for people. That's why people are dying. We're making room for people. Now you have a choice. So no matter what, whether you're a veteran of foreign wars or domestic wars or whatever, if you're in a battle and you lose or you're dying and you don't really have any hope, this weekend is for you. This weekend is for those who are fighting battles right now that they probably will not survive. That's what this Memorial Weekend is for. We don't want to be so discriminatory. Because those that are fighting cancer right now, who are under oncology, under so many therapies, they're in a battle. They are a veteran. And they're in a domestic battle. They're in a biological battle to the death. And most likely, many people will not survive it. And so, that's what I say. Make people's death and dying mean something in the J world. And recognize the compartmentalization of everything. Because everything is connected. Just understand the words. And so if you have been traumatized, I don't care where, why, when, and how, make that trauma mean something. Don't let that trauma destroy you. And it is destroying a lot of people. The trauma they've experienced, people have experienced, is destroying them. Because you look at them looping on their Facebook. They can't get out of the trauma. They are in that trauma and they're in it until they pass away. And that's in politics, religion, and science. And then all the different experiments. And so this is what this holiday is for them. And you just hope that they have an okay time leaving this world. And you hope their kids have a chance. But a lot of ways, if parents are dying from trauma, their kids won't survive. Good luck. Bye.